الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, assalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Welcome to the Man's World podcast. Thank you for joining us another week. If you remember last time we were here, we talked about recovering from divorce, how to be successful. We covered the males aspect of that. And this week we're going to cover the women. If you have any questions, comments, type it in the chat. Email us, contact us via WhatsApp. Any questions at all, any counseling, any advice, we're here for you. So with that, let's just jump right in. I want to start off with a post and get your comments on it, Mubarak, because I think we need to address this part first. And it's really, especially when we're talking about women. I mean, it applies to men first as well. But we want to make sure that the people that we're advising know the reality and have a realistic outlook before they actually get into the situation. And you guys that are watching, before you get to this point of being divorced, right? You should go back and see our previous content of what to look for and what to think about before you actually take those steps or get into that situation, because it's very important. So I want to share my screen real quick. And let's see, window, there we go. Okay. Now, if you see here, this lady, she says, after 21 years married, I've asked my husband for a divorce. After 21 years, I feel happy and excited about a new chapter. So it's 21 years of marriage, right? And let's not assume anything. Let's just take what we can obviously get from it. We're not going to talk about the quality of her marriage or whatever, but she was married for 21 years. So the marriage is at least good enough to last for 2 decades. And at this point, you could say, let's say she got married very young, around 20. She's 40 something years old right now. Okay. And then, so she's very excited about this new chapter in her life. And Alyssa replies to her comment, giving her a nice smack of reality, and says, well, let me just say, you'll be extremely lucky if a new chapter is waiting for you. I've been divorced for 20 years, and I haven't found anyone yet. Biggest mistake I ever made. So what are your thoughts on that, Mubarak?
I mean, it's like it's very sobering, right? Because a lot of people, not just women, but men, women, or when they're either they feel like they can do better or they went out of the relationship, they're thinking, they definitely can do better. There's someone better for them. But the sobering reality for women is that it's just not likely. And the more likely scenario, as the original lady who posted how after 21 years, the more likely scenario is what the woman who replied to gave. And that is, yes, that knight in shining armor, Mr. Perfect, Mr. Right. It's not to say that never happens, that you don't actually find someone better for you, or you find some happiness. There's lots of people that do, but majority of people wind up, still, struggling. Yes. And it's a very, very real possibility. So we kind of, to start it off, to really know what you're up against. If you're in a similar area, age range, situation as the woman who posted this here.
Mm-hmm. And I want to really point out is you really have to kind of weigh your options, look at the pluses and negatives of the decisions that you're about to make, and look at the reality of the situation. And this goes for men and women, and look at what is the most likely scenario that I'm going to be in. And as Mubarak mentioned, the new chapter and finding a new man that's going to be so much better than your previous husband, the odds are very slim that you're going to find a man that can give you the same level of relationship you had with someone you just had for 21 years. Very, very low likelihood of that happening. And what's most likely is going to happen is that, you may have think that during your 21 years of marriage that you were like, oh, I have to deal with so much and put up with this and put up with that. Well, yeah, that's marriage. That your husband was doing the same thing for 21 years, right? However, you're going to have to put up with much more and settle for much less to get a piece of what you actually had for that 21 years. And the sad thing is that a lot of women don't actually admit to this because they feel like if I do admit to this, it's gonna be like I lost, right? At least Alyssa had the wherewithal and the integrity and the courage to say like, yeah, I messed up. I made a mistake, and you don't want to make a mistake. But let's say, let's get into the reality of what actually goes on, and you're in the situation now. You're in this situation where the reality is, what Alyssa said. How do you actually become successful and make the best out of that opportunity? And what advice can we start giving women that are in these situations?
Yeah, I would say, and if we look at Alyssa and the other young lady, Miss Derry,
Mhm.
that is a 40-year span, right? The lady was married for 21 years. Then the Alyssa who responded is saying she's been, after being divorced, she's been looking for 20 years and has not found it. So you're talking about a long period of time.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say this because a lot of women get, or a lot of men, and sometimes in these red pill spaces or men's help or whatever, one of the reasons why we started this channel, because of all the issues in that space, they will put women down and they say women age like milk, and they it's not accurate. Actually, it's funny.
Right.
We sometimes we joke about it, but it's not accurate. And one thing that we may come off sometimes seeming like we're bashing women, but we're really not. We're just trying to give a reality and trying to give you some actionable things that you can really take some benefit in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, instead of these women age like, milk or any of these things, really women have to look at themselves like you are going to age like a professional athlete. A
Yeah.
professional athlete, their window of at their peak as far as athletic performance and where they can get the most traction and make the most money, or at least set themselves up. Now, there's some outliers, but for the most part, it's between the age of 15 to 25. If you look at track athletes, even if you just put it to women, track or tennis, and you'll see 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old tennis players who are the best in the world, or who are challenging the best in the world. By the time they're 25 or 28, in that range, they're at their peak, or it's about time to start declining. Now they can peak and then plateau and then maintain that for a little while maybe.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're at their best, their strongest, they're most physically impressive, and as far as their athletic performance and potential, and the fear that they put in their opponents. And you can liken that to the attractiveness physically that you have, that men have for you, and the type of doors that gets you into, and the type of excuses people will make for you, and the type of things that they will put up from you, and the type of baggage you can have in which they will deal with because of your prowess, physically, just like an athlete. But as athletes get older, they then, that fear and that their adversaries start to, as far as physically, they're not afraid anymore, and they start to be able to challenge them. And then what worked when they were 25, the way that they jumped and made their moves or whatever at 25, it's not as effective at 35.
Yeah.
And then at 45, you can no longer do that. It does not work anymore. So
Yeah.
some women, they might get into that area where, after 20 years of marriage, they never really put that much effort into saying, I need to be attractive,
Yeah.
And so the dress or the little perfume and the makeup, and you do your hair this way or whatever, and then you go out, or you think, well, that worked, so well before, and you get to the reality that it doesn't work. The potency is not there. And to not that it's all bad. The thing is, it's just like, for instance, we'll use Michael Jordan as an example.
Mhm.
He, what at his peak was definitely under the age of 40. He was, in his mid 30s, maybe you would say, but even in his mid 30s, his game had completely changed. He didn't operate the same way. Instead of it just being a physical, it became more of a mental game. And still, he was pretty much done being an effective player, even though at one point he was the best player in the world. He was done really being effective after the age of 40 for sure. 38, 39, I think he was done.
Mhm.
But now what does he live off of? People still talk as if he's still playing. They're comparing him to people that are still playing. It's the legacy. It's the legacy, what he built. So a lot of what a woman can do, they can build and they acquire, certain things when they're in their younger ages to where they can live off of that,
Yep.
as they get older, when they don't have the physical ability anymore as much, but because of the what they were able to acquire when they were younger. Now, I know we're talking about divorce, but this is something that you have to realize. So
Mhm.
if you have not been able to secure that at a younger age, then right now it's the equivalent of you're getting into an area where you're out on the court, on the field or whatever, and now you have to play a different game. It will not be the same game, the same type of style or whatever
Yeah.
that you will have to play. And if you don't adjust, then you'll be like the old man or old woman on the court running around,
Yeah.
and these people are jumping over you and running by you and everything, and your game is just not going to be the same.
Yeah, and if you look at it, keep with the athlete analogy, and it really shows in like different types of quarterbacks, right? And the smart ones are the ones that change and adjust their game while they are still at their physical peak to be able to still perform while their physical peak declines, right? And in some rare instances, you could see that them being able to perform, the longevity and the way that they change their game, right? And if you put that in the context of women and wives, right? When you're young, you're relying on your physical beauty, right? Those types of things to secure what you wanted as far as a man. But while you have that, if you work on the stuff that's actually going to give you longevity to attract a man, your personality, how you can be of help, your Islam, your piety, your modesty, these types of things are no matter where your physical attributes go in the future. Because let's be real, there's somebody that may be a 10 in their 20s, even 30s. Then at some point, they come like Derrick Rose and they land on that knee, and then all of a sudden they're like, who is that person? Like, some people just don't age well. That's how Allah made us. Some people just really don't age well. They get that one little look and you're like, wait a minute, is that the same person I seen 20 years ago? And it's absolutely not, right? So you have to prepare yourselves for that. And so what do you have to say to the women as far as like because we talked about this with the men, and we have to make sure that before they start moving on this path to being successful, getting their lives back together, finding a meaningful relationship, about assessing whether they're actually still connected to the previous relationship. So what do we tell our women for that?
Yeah, it's got to be a clean break. The way that you recover and then bounce back better, or in a better situation, or in a situation that works for you. Because the reality is it may not be a better situation, but you're not married anymore. You're not married to that person, and the situation is different. It may not be better, but it may be something that works for you. But the first thing that you need to make sure is that you're still not tethered and connected to that situation physically, for sure. The physical relationship should definitely be over. But sometimes, hey, listen, that should be over. Let's just say that.
How many kids pop up after divorce?
Lots of it. It happens more often than people may realize. So that's part of it. You cannot be still connected physically, and emotionally. If you find yourself uh, adjusting the way that you might look, what you might wear, how you're dressing when your ex-husband may or may not be around, there's still an issue. Now, of course, there is some human nature to where you don't want to look, as they say, busted or whatever, in front of
Right.
anybody for the most part. But when you start to do little things extra to make sure that you're you know uh looking your best, then there's still some connection there. When you start making social media posts or WhatsApp statuses or whatever to
Yeah.
try to either attract or get the attention of, or to even make jealous or whatever, you're still emotionally attached to that. Even if you're trying to antagonize him,
Yeah.
you have an emotional attachment that has to go away, because if any of your actions are still tied to and affected by your previous relationship, especially those emotional ones, it could destroy your future relationship.
Yes.
No man is going to want you spending your time and energy, you know, even though you might see it as insignificant, but not worrying about, thinking about trying to impress or to annoy your ex. I mean, no real man is going to want that. If the
Exactly.
man that you have is okay with that, then he's pretty.
You like a certain type of guy.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
that's the thing. Got to be a clean break.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on this as far as like, because there may be some things where I need to make a clean break, but we have children together and all that. But it's more about, there's going to be children, so you have to get your custody, visitation stuff situated. If you're a Muslim woman, and that's probably going to be primarily our audience, is that you have to make sure you abide by what Islam says regarding custody, because when you actually do get to a point like, okay, I'm ready to look for a new spouse, similar to what Mubarak said, that if your husband is okay with you trying to annoy and be obsessing or talking about your ex-husband, well, most men, good men, aren't going to be cool with that. Just like most good men aren't going to be cool with you, oppressing and taking advantage and not giving your ex their rights regarding, their children. And if you do get a man that's okay with, oh yeah, the father don't see the kids, and I take child support, and I do all alimony and all these different things that are outside of the rights of what is due to a divorced woman in Islam, a good man is not going to deal with you straight up. And if they do deal with you, then you don't got a good man, and you'll see the results of that come out in your relationship. It may seem all fine in the beginning, but best believe you're going to see those same characteristics come out in other ways in your relationship. Because if he's okay with you oppressing somebody else, then he's definitely okay with him oppressing you. Very simply.
Absolutely. And another thing to that is, if he's okay with it, you being still tethered, attached to emotionally, to another man, then either A, he's not really attached to you.
Yeah.
You're something that he's using for the time being,
Yeah.
and really he doesn't have a sense of pride or jealousy, or I don't want to say ownership, but it's kind of like that, to where you're my wife, and so he's like, just my turn or whatever. So if you want to be attached to whoever, as long as I'm getting what I need out of this situation for now, I'm good. So
Yeah.
that's something that you have to think about. If he don't care that you spend a significant amount of your energy and time, whatever, thinking about, talking about, trying to bother your ex, then he doesn't really care that much for you, or he's not strong enough to actually stand up to you and say what he actually feels and wants. Maybe he doesn't like it, but he's just too weak. That can also be another problem. So you got to think about that too. But I do want to ask you a question that I asked you last week, Dr. Griffin. And that is, we said, under what circumstance would a man, because part of being tethered to is the main thing is you have to ask yourself, do I still have feelings for my ex, i.e., do I still want them?
Right.
And I asked you the question for the men, under what circumstance would it be okay for a man whose wife left him or they got divorced, she doesn't want him, or even if she moved on or whatever, or maybe she's still single, whatever. Under what circumstance, if the wife left him, would it be acceptable for him to still be trying to pursue her, chase after her, win her back, beg her to come back,
Right.
this type of thing?
Yeah.
So for the woman, do you see any? Is it the same, or do you see any scenarios in which she it would be okay, or if she should?
So yes, there's the one. There's definitely it's definitely different. It's definitely different, and we can go into Holy Quran and Hadith and get into the nature of women of explaining why and supporting why it's definitely different. Okay, so but we don't have time for that. But it's definitely different because of the nature of men and how these situations usually occur. So there's going to be two situations. Did he divorce you? Okay, so that means that he divorced you for a reason. And if you could figure out the reason for why he divorced you and acknowledge that, take ownership of that and fix that, then definitely there should be considerations of like, hey, maybe we should get back together, right? I fixed that issue. That's not an issue anymore. If you left him, then you need to do the same thing within yourself and say, why did I actually leave? Was it truly a situation that he's at fault? Like he was abusive, adultery, serial adultery, like these types of things. And you should, depending on what the situation is, if one, you realize like maybe it's not that big of an issue, you've grown, you've matured, you realize it's not that big of an issue, or if you found it within yourself that you can deal with it instead of dealing with the reality of being divorced and trying to find somebody you knew and dealing with unknown issues that you're going to actually deal with in the new marriage. So it's definitely different, right? Because a man, when we said from a man, it's like there's pretty much hardly any situation that a man should think about that, right? Just move on, get somebody new. It's different for a woman because let's be real, it's going to be harder for you to actually get remarried. Just get remarried. It's going to be harder and almost impossible to get remarried to somebody that's going to put you in a better situation. So that's what I would advise women to. That is something you should definitely consider, because sometimes you need a break, you need a reset button, you need a taste of what the reality is out there, and you're like, you know what? I actually did have a good situation. The grass was actually brown on the other side. For some reason, the fence was making it look green, but it's brown. There's actually no grass. It's just like a gravel pit over here. That's it. You know.
Yeah. If your situation is one in which you find yourself looking for someone similar to your ex, then especially like when you have children, or if you are at a certain age, the likelihood of you finding someone better than him is not high. And the reason why is because you, more than likely, as far as women are concerned, more than likely you were better when you met him. As far as you had more traction, you were younger, and you may or may not have had less children. A lot of things that in reality do work against women when they're looking for another husband, which is the amount of children that you have, and baby daddy / ex-husband issues. He's still lurking around, or he still has a significant part of your life or whatever. So when you look at it, to think that you're going to do better than someone who was okay or pretty good, or even if he was average, that means you probably were pretty average as well. And then you have the baggage that's on top of that. So it's not likely at all that you're going to find someone that is going to be better than your ex, because he was probably about as good as you could do. It is not for everyone. There are exceptions, but in general, he probably was about as good as you could do when you were better.
This
Now,
is what they could do, right? I got a little test for the women that are out there, that if you are divorced and you want to see it, like, wait, am I looking for my ex, right? because a lot of times you'll find if you do this test, you'll see that, oh yeah, you are looking for your ex. So what you do is just write down all the main qualities you're looking for in the husband. Then have somebody else that knows your ex-husband see how many of those qualities match up. And what they do is you'll see that they actually describe their ex-husband to a T, then just remove anything they thought bad about him, and then add in extra qualities. So pretty much they make him into like a super sane ex-husband. I want the next level of my ex-husband. I want to improve. If they'll describe them to a T. Like they'll say, for instance, I'll give an example. They'll say, I want him to be a good Muslim. I want him to be knowledgeable. I want him to be a good father. I want him to be active in the Ummah. And I also want him to, be very, very emotionally connected to me. And when you look at all the qualities, the guy matched 4 out of those 5 qualities, but the 5th one wasn't enough for them. So they're like, yeah, but my next guy, I want him to have all that and this. Good luck.
And what's funny about it is that even if the next guy has all of that, what he's not going to have is to be emotionally connected to you. He's going to literally start with 0 emotional connection.
Exactly.
So Allahumma musta'an. But yeah, and it really is, and we could go on and on about this topic, but the main thing that we want the women for the people who are the wali or father or managing a woman's situation, you have to make sure, you have to let her know, hey, you have to completely detach from this situation. And if you still have these strong feelings or whatever, it may be a situation where that may be who you need to be pursuing. That may be it.
Yeah.
And it may take some humility. You might have to get some humble pie, but it's better for a woman to humble herself and they might take it as humiliation or whatever to chase after someone who is a known quantity. He's known to you. You know exactly what you're going to get, the good and the bad. You know exactly what it is versus, taking your shot at finding something better when it's just not likely. So if you're still attached, that should be option number 1 if they are a viable option. If not, for whatever reason that you got divorced or whatever, or things that this person has major problems, maybe they're, who knows, all types of things. But if it's a deal breaker, a no-go situation, that's different. But if it's just, situation where you're looking for, X, Y, and Z, and he has X and Y, Z may never exist in anyone that you get. So, go with X and Y and be happy with that, and Allah knows best.
And that plays right into what we've been mentioning all along, is just understanding that new reality that you're in, right? Your physical has changed, your mental has changed, your spiritual has changed since before you got married, and you have to really assess where you are with that. And this really goes back into like when you're talking about what you want to X, Y, Z, A, B, C, getting into the needs versus wants, right? You got divorced for whatever reasons. How many of those reasons you got divorced were needs? How many were wants? Right? If you're getting divorced because of wants, that's a problem. And if you're out here looking for someone else for wants and not your needs, that's a problem. You really need to assess your needs. You need to put them in priority order, because you might not get all of those. You might get, if you put it on a number scale and you say everything's out of like 100%, and you have A, B, C, D needs, you might get 120% of A and only 50% of D. But you know what? That at the end of the day, this is gonna work for me. So you have to really assess that situation. But what about the women that, and it really applies, I think, for women that have especially small children, right? Where, because what happened, the custody situation changes when you have small children, you remarry, that it changes. And a good Muslim woman would have to really consider that. So should a woman remarry, or what situation should she remarry, or what situation should she stay single?
Oh boy. Well, put it this way: some women they and men too, but men usually they're always in this situation. They really, well, let's stick with the women. Some
Yeah.
women, they physically, they have a strong desire and need to have a, physical intimacy. They really don't want to be without it. And the other
Yeah.
women, it really is not that big a deal. And the desire to get married is more of a emotional thing. It's a social thing. They want a companion. They want someone to spend time with, and you know to be in a relationship. They don't, and for those women, I feel like the women who don't have this strong push for, the sex part, that they have to be and should be more cautious, and
Yes.
they can take their time. They don't actually, they can be looking for the right situation, and it's easier for them, I think. But
Hmm.
even some of those types still rush into things because of the emotions of it. Um, but for the woman who has that the need for sex, I would say completely put the the search and the decision making in the hands of someone else.
Yes.
That what I would
Yes.
say straight up. Do that, but
Yes.
you definitely have to ask yourself: do you need to get married? People really don't. You never need to get married for that reason, unless really you are reckless and you will, do
Yeah.
something that you shouldn't do. Then it becomes a need. But if it's just a strong desire for you, then you have to look at, like we said, the new reality of what is happening here. You have to, if
Hmm.
you have, especially if you have small children, you have to find someone within a certain radius of where you live who's willing to either commute in, out, or move in, out, or already be there in that radius. If
Yeah.
you still want to maintain that relationship with your children, let's pretend that the woman who is going to get married, she's going to give the children to her husband and she's going to do all the right things or whatever. But you
Right.
still want to have that same interaction with your children. So you're looking at this new reality in which you actually are going to have to choose between a husband and your children a lot of times. It's not
Yeah.
100%, but pretty much your focus and your energy is going to have to be put into that new relationship, and you have to look at it: is this person worth my time, energy, affection, and life, over whatever happiness that and joy your children bring to you.
Yeah.
Some people, they enjoy their time with their children, and that is going to be affected, severely affected. Now, some people may have a situation where it's easy, and a lot of times it will be made easier by making things easier on your ex-husband while you're not married,
Yeah.
and then he's more likely to be very accommodating, and make it easy. If you make it
Yeah.
easy for him when you have the opportunity to make it hard, then he'll make it easy for you when he can make it hard for you. So you have to think about that. But
Yeah.
you have to look at that reality and you have to say, do I need to get married more than my desire and my joy of being with and hanging out with my children or being around them or whatever?
Hmm.
It's a hard decision to make, but it's not going to make itself. You have to pick one or the other.
Are
Like I
there any
said before.
Are there
Go
any
ahead.
situations you can think of where so take the children out of it? It's not a factor in the decision of whether to pursue remarriage or to stay single. Can you think of any other situations without the kids where you would recommend for a sister to, like, yeah, you shouldn't get married right now?
If we say without the children,
Yes.
um, I,
No,
I would
not the
say,
physical thing isn't, like, the physical need isn't there, and there's no children. And are there any situations like, oh yeah, you should probably wait?
boy, I would say that I don't know of a situation where if she doesn't have children, if she doesn't have the children are not there and a physical need. The thing is, if she eventually wants a husband, the longer she waits, the clock is ticking. The
Yeah.
clock is ticking. If you
Yeah.
wait 5 years, for instance, say, well, after I finish, my bachelor's and my master's and doctorate, okay, you're gonna wait 7 years, and by then you go from 27 to 34, and that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
You're not even in range for for a large group. So
Yeah.
I would say that if a woman doesn't have, even if she does have, aspirations to do other things, I would say still have your idea of what you're looking for and what you want. And as soon as you find it, try to get married and try and
Yeah.
make a deal for you to keep doing those things that you want to do. If they agree to do it, then you've got it. But to think that same person in 7 years is going to be there waiting for you, ready for you, when
Yeah.
they have made 7 years of progress.
Yeah.
You got to think about that. That person has made 7 years of progress theoretically. And so that man is going to be possibly in a position to get someone better than you. And if you get him early, you got a chance. If you wait too late, you'll be, you may not get the opportunity. I see a lot of times, sometimes people say, well, how did she get with him? How did she do it?
Mhm.
Early. She was there early. Okay. Before he became so and so. So, but I don't know of any scenario where I could recommend that a woman who doesn't have, baggage, or even if she doesn't have the desire to get married, that she shouldn't. The only thing that I would say is if a woman has some health issues that she needs to get cleared up or whatever, or if that woman physically, maybe she's overweight.
Mhm.
Okay. I would say that she should, she probably would increase her, chances a lot better. She would have a lot of better options if she, maybe she's 100 pounds overweight. Yeah. Take a year to get your weight under control, or two, if it takes that. And then you probably would go from, having, two options to 25 options if you did that.
So I want to share something real quick. Let me just get it open, just to kind of give an idea of what we're talking about, because it's very different. Because men were going to give different advice on the same exact topic. Because in a lot of situations, we will be like, "Yeah, dude, wait," right? But everybody reaches a point where like, you waited too long. Remember last time we were talking about the decade boys? Because at a certain point, you wait, you become a red flag, right? So it's different from for women though, because the time factor changes drastically. And so I want you guys to look at this. And this is just a this is maybe a red pill thing or whatever, but it's actually true. So it's a sexual market value. Who cares what these numbers mean? It just means how valuable you are. Like you're a 10 at a certain point, and this is the age on the bottom. So as you see, as the age goes up, very quickly the woman's value, and let's take the word sexual out of it. Let's just say just value, period, as far as like getting a spouse, jumps to 10 very early. See, around in the 20s. And then it quickly drops down. You see the men, it rises slower, right? And I would even say that it declines slower. They have this declining pretty fast around 40 or 50. I don't even think that's true. I think it kind of declines a lot slower. But the point is that men, if we say you get this, they got divorced at 30, when they're at the same exact level, 30 years old, you're on your way down while the man is on his way up. So the only situation that I could think of like telling a sister to wait is that first, like when we go back to assessing your reality, look back at your divorce and why you got divorced. Why did you divorce your husband, and or why did he divorce you? And if you can't sit there and actually take some accountability of what your issues were that you were responsible for in your marriage, you should very quickly, as soon as possible, try to at least like, okay, find something that you can work on while you actually search for what you're needing. And where I tell guys this as well, because a lot of guys fall into the trap of like they want to get everything perfect before they actually pursue somebody. I want to get in shape. I want to get my finances straight. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a new car. And then at the end of the day, like 20 years goes by, and it's like you actually pursuing it and looking for it is actually going to kind of force you to get in that correct mode, right? And like Mubarak said, you might, why, even though you may not be mentally ready to get married, you might stumble across like, oh, this, I can't pass this up, right? I can't pass this up, so I'm gonna have to jump on it and get it, and I'm gonna work on the rest while figure the rest out. So again, when we have to really pay attention to your situation, your age, how much time, and you have to get up on the horse as fast as you possibly can. And we went through this last time, but and we had the different scenarios of like what are the realistic marriage options for a person, right? And I think we did it like as far as like who should you marry, right? For the men, like if you found a woman that has this, so we got to do the same for the men,
or
right?
basically if you're considering an option with these, with this situation going on. But before we get to that, real quick, I do want to say, like how we were saying, understanding your new reality, and for a lot of women, the new reality, especially like the example gave in the first part, is like after 20 years or after 15, 20 years or whatever, if you're in your 40s or whatever, it's like, when you're in your 20s or even teens or 20s, it's like that. If you want to look at like a strong cup of coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's just hitting, right? It's strong. You're buzzing, whatever. Now imagine someone just took a gallon of water and diluted it,
Yeah.
there's still coffee there, but it just ain't, this is the new reality, when women think of how they're going to attract a man. So what I want to ask you, Dr. Griffin, is this.
Yeah.
What do you think realistically for a woman, say, who is outside of that peak market value range, what they say she's 40s or maybe 50s or whatever, let's just say 50, 45 to 55. Yeah. What realistic things can that woman do to increase or maximize her market value? Okay, she's not 21 anymore. She doesn't have that automatically everybody snaps and turns their head, whatever she says, a man's, he's gonna do it. She's in a different age, in a different range. How can she maximize the situation that she's in now?
So the first thing that always comes to mind, and it's the same thing we told the guys, try to get physically fit, right? That's something you should be doing anyway, whether you're married or not, right? We all should be doing this, and it's a struggle we all have, especially the way we live in America. And, but anyway, that's something you could work on right from the get. You should be working on that. And it shouldn't be with the mindset of, I need to do this to get married, because as soon as you get married, you're going to just, I can get sloppy again, right? No, you should be trying to change your mindset of how you actually interact with how your life operates, how you eat, how you exercise, your activity, right? And it has so much different positive aspects to that will actually play into the next part, I would say, is you really have to work on those intangibles, right? Your mental and your spiritual outlook and interactions with people. Okay. If you can really, even if you just like, okay, I'm going to stay the same shape I am, whatever it is, I don't need to work on that. If people start interacting with you, and believe me, it's going to get back to the men, and they realize like you're pleasant to be around, you're soft-spoken, you're obedient, you're smart, you got a good personality, you're religious, there's going to be men chasing after you, right? There's certain intangible things that men, no matter what you look like, they're going to find you beautiful if they see these qualities in you. I seen a video the other day. It's a comedian. I don't know his name, but he was interviewing some white lady. She might have been another comedian or actress or whatever. And she was on a podcast, and she like raised her hand to speak. And he's like, you don't got to raise your hand to speak. And then she was, and he's like, but I like that that's obedient. And she was like she did something that was like basically like, yes, I am obedient type of thing. And he was like, ooh, like what you did, right? Like there's certain things like that. If you could work on that inside your character to be like, you basically prepare yourself to be that type of wife, you're going to you have a potential to find someone very good or even better than what you previously had, because you got to really level that part up. So I'll say the physical thing and the intangible stuff as far as personality and piety and those types of things.
So we'll try to run through these
Yeah.
these pretty
All
quickly,
right.
but
So I'll let you
realistic.
go first. So if a woman's considering marrying a man who's young and he has no kids, what she be thinking about?
So if a woman is considering a younger man who has no kids, and if
Mhm.
we assume that she does have kids, um, but if she doesn't have kids, then the only thing that she really would have to worry about, of course, there may be a maturity gap there. You know, some of the
Yep.
things and experiences that you've had, some of the tastes that you have as far as, you know, entertainment or, you know, just in life, there's going to be
Yep.
a gap there. So that can be cause some frustration. Um, but if you can't have children anymore, eventually, on average, overwhelming majority of the time, that man is going to want kids, even if originally he's like, yeah, I don't care, I just want a wife.
Yeah.
Eventually, he's going to want some children. If you can't do that, you have to know that there will be someone else, or the relationship will probably end because of that.
Yeah.
So I have seen multiple times where women, they can't have children. They married a younger man, and then they're, you know, they're fighting tooth and nail
Yeah.
over, you know, him you know, finding an other option to have children, you know, and so this is something that you have to know going in. You are not going to be able to, most likely, even don't look at someone else who has was able to do it. Most likely you will not be able to keep that man to yourself or keep the relationship. If it's a man who can have children and he's young enough
Yeah.
to have them, it's just not likely that he will decide that, you know, I just won't have any children.
Yeah. And I'll just say two things that you need to consider. One, for the guy, you have to make sure that he's mature enough not to be jealous or whatever type of feelings that you were actually married before, because he could be coming in like virgin, not been married, and that could be an issue. Like maybe he does have a secret issue with like you actually having a previous husband. Um, that's a reality. And the other thing is too is, especially if you're older, you have to make sure you manage yourself and that you can actually fall under somebody that's younger than you, and not try to be like, oh, I'm older, I know more than you, I have more experience, I'm your boss, because he's going to grow out of that, relate out of that very soon, and actually it'll cause a split between you guys, because you're trying to be the dominant in the relationship where he's going to grow into his natural role. And don't try to be the dude's mother, pretty much.
And I'll just say this: there are some men that they do want a mother. You know, they want to be they want someone to be motherly to them and with them. I mean, it's a little weird, but there are some people that fit that category.
Yep.
And so, but you have to understand that you might not like that type of guy though. But there are
Yeah.
people like that. If you, hey, if that's your thing, go for it. But
Yep.
that maybe you won't like that person. Also, another factor that you have to think about is, so for the older woman who has children, your children could be in and around the same age as him. Like we said, where the man, you know,
Yep.
he might get folded up by the son if he, tries to, talk a little
Yep.
sassy to his mother, which it has happened before. But also, what you have to factor into for the woman, this is the thing that you have to factor into. You have a man who's younger, and statistically, it happens a lot where that man has either a natural attraction to some of your children or one that's unnatural, but it's a danger. It's a danger
Mhm.
for your children, especially if they're young. He could, there's weird people out there. So that's something that you have to really look into. What type of person, that background, get a background check.
Yep. Yes.
Make sure he's not on any list or anything. Because sometimes you do have people that will pursue, a younger man will pursue an older woman because of her children.
Mm.
They're in the house with him. He has easy access or whatever. So you have to be very, very careful with that. And it also happens to where, the woman, she's 45 years old. She's got a 23-year-old daughter. She marries a 26-year-old man. I mean, he runs off with the daughter, and
Yeah.
so that happens too. So you have to realize you are an antique version of your daughter in a lot of situations. So
Yeah.
if he has an attraction to you, it could be. I'm not saying for everyone. But this is something that I would tell a person that you have to think about this because it could be possible. And especially if that daughter has daddy issues or whatever, her father's not around, it is something that you have to, if you do get in that situation, you have to pay very close attention to that situation and make sure it's nothing weird, especially because just because you got married doesn't mean you automatically know the person that well.
Yeah,
It takes some time, and after you can kind of get a good idea of what type of person they really are. You have to be on guard and really be watching for that.
So what about the same situation, but the young man doesn't have any kids?
What do you mean? The man is younger but does have kids?
Does not have any kids, or does have kids? Sorry, yes,
Okay,
does have
so
kids.
the man is younger but has kids.
Yes.
For the older woman, I think that is probably the best case scenario because it's most likely that he won't necessarily have to have more. He might have enough. And then you can get in really good with him. One of the ways to really have a man really love you is that you're good to his children. Yeah. So if his children really are attached and like and love you, then it gives you some currency in the relationship that really you can't get it any other way. And it may help to really mask and help to overlook any weaknesses in other areas that you may have. And I would think if you're older, that probably is a good scenario to be in. I think it's more dangerous, or the likelihood of it having success is less if he has no children, and you can't have any. But if he has some, even if you don't have any, I think it's probably the best case scenario.
And I guess the thing when you're talking about marrying someone younger, and depending on what that age is, whether they have kids or not, you always have to consider as a woman that if he doesn't have another wife, it's highly likely that he may be looking for another wife sometime in the future, or he might already have a wife and you might be the one coming in to, add to his family. So you always got to consider that. As far as like someone looking at a man who's older and he has no kids. And for me, I'm thinking the first thing that comes to mind is, does he want kids? And do you want kids, or do you have kids already? Like, you look at your own situation in that, because if he's older and doesn't have kids, maybe he doesn't want kids or can't have kids. Yeah. And if you want to, then that's something you have to consider. But if you don't want to, it could be a good situation where, you guys have just lived in your old, not to say old, but older, mature lives and doing the things that you want to do. Maybe some of the things you couldn't do in your previous relationship because of raising children and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing where whenever you marry a person who doesn't have children, there's certain things when you have children. There are certain things. I mean, you learn to deal with it, especially like things with discipline or whatever. Like some people that don't have children, sometimes they really don't understand. Like sometimes they're overly, think that the children should, they like they're undisciplined or whatever. It's like, listen, I'm not gonna beat my kids for every single solitary time that they have an issue. This is not, we're not in the army. I'm not a drill sergeant. Sometimes it's like a person who doesn't have children, and I went through this before where they don't have any children, they want them, or they think and so coming in there thinking, well, I'm gonna help the discipline these children. I'm like, sometimes that's okay. You can let them go. Like it's like there is nuance to it, and as a parent, you understand that. But someone who doesn't have any children, they may cause some frustration there because what they may see is, wow, you're just a pushover. No, I'm a human being that a person that I actually love and care about, and I know they're not going to be perfect, and so that's something to look.
You got to let them rock out. You hear them in the other room fighting, tearing each other's heads off. All right, let them go. They'll figure it out. But Dad, Abu, so did this. Oh, okay. All right, whatever. It is what it is. So, what about an older man with kids?
He's older with kids. I mean, I would say to me that is probably the second best scenario as we looked at, to where you kind of have more like if you're older with kids, you're gonna have some stability there, hopefully.
Yeah.
And the only possible issue, or one of the possible issues that I would look at is sometimes um, the kids, you have an issue with the kids like respecting you, like
Yeah.
okay, you're
Yes.
trying to, you're their
You're not
father's.
my mommy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it comes with a certain level of respect where you should be respected, similar to your own mother. And
Yeah.
so, especially if they're so close in age, like sometimes that happens to where the wife might be so close in age to some of the older children that they're looking at you like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you really
Yeah.
ain't like that. Like you think you can tell me like what to do, like my daddy can tell me what to do, but you really you in the same boat. Because
Yeah.
and really sometimes they are in a similar boat because the daddy does tell her what to do just like them. So
Yeah.
it is something that the husband has to manage, in a way
Yeah.
that can make everything work. But it may be a source of frustration, or it might be a thing where they're close in age, so you have people who you can hang and chill with, and it's like having extra family members, which is what they
Yeah.
are. So
Yeah.
it could go both ways, but as far as the main pressure point a lot of times is the respect thing. They don't
Yeah.
respect me. Well,
Yeah.
because you were born 17 months before they were, so maybe
Yeah.
that could be an issue.
Yeah. So the last two are, so you have the one situation where the woman would be upgrading financially, which
I
obviously,
mean,
like
yeah.
there's no downside to that, right? That's how it should be.
Well,
Yeah.
I will say that upgrade financially, and a lot of time, and I always say this is a big thing. This is a big
Yeah.
thing. You will find women that they may upgrade to a person who is more ambitious. He's successful. Oh man, you're so much more smarter and stronger and successful and in shape and other than my other husband or whatever.
Yeah.
And they think they can still behave like they did with the guy who just wasn't
Yeah.
like that. Like
That's true.
this guy is successful maybe because he wakes up, at 4 a.m. and he works until over her time, or
Yeah.
he's pays attention to his diet. It's like, wow, my last husband was 400 pounds. You're the skinniest husband that I've had. It's like there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
doesn't just like oh wow, you're strong. It's because of the time that's put in. So they may have certain expectations. That person who's an upgrade financially, he didn't up unless he's
So
just won the lottery, or he inherited a bunch of money from his parents.
that's a very good point, because lifestyle changes when money changes, whether you like it or not. So that you have to really, really think about that. That's a very good point for people to understand. Yeah. So like he relies on you to book the hotels for the vacation, and you go and have book a hotel at the Motel 6 or whatever, and he's like, "We're staying in this. Like, what? Are we supposed to be at the Ritz? What?" Like, you're like, "Well, what? I thought it was like you have to." That's a silly example, but in just day-to-day life, like you said, it's going to be a reality shock or a culture shock depending on how they function in their life. You
Yeah,
know?
so that's the thing. More than likely, it's not just if you look at just upgrade financially, sometimes it's also an upgrade in lifestyle and mentality. So
Yeah.
the one thing that you may have to realize is that that person may have much higher expectations, and his disappointment might be higher for when you don't operate in a similar way, as far as waking up in the morning and having some ambition to yourself as well, to have some
Yeah.
goals and not just be a person who their life is to sit and wait for you to come home or whatever, and then
Yeah.
that's when their day begins. Okay, now let's just, or they may be also busy too, to make that money. It may be a thing where he has to go and make it. He has to do certain things. Maybe he's on call. Maybe
Yeah.
he works long hours. So you
There
got to
might
look at that too. So upgrade financially in your lifestyle. You might have more things or whatever, but you may have less time. You may be under more scrutiny to actually match that same energy. So you
Yeah.
got to be careful with that.
Give a quick examples, like, so you may be used to a lifestyle where it's okay to leave dishes overnight or a couple days and get to them when you get to them, and house may be dirty 1 or 2 3 days out the week, and you may get in a new situation where that husband comes home and sees dirty dishes in the sink, and he's like, yeah, I can't do this, I'm going to divorce you, sorry. I don't live like this. So just pay attention to that.
Okay.
What about downgrading, marrying somebody that is not as financially off or well off as the woman is?
This is the most likely scenario that you'll be in if you've been married for a long time and then you get divorced. It's highly likely that you will downgrade financially to your lifestyle. It's the most likely one. So it's really the one that you should be prepared for. And if you do better in one of the other categories, then that's great. But the reason why is, like we said, that person who is, has been working financially, if he is single, the choices that he's going to be choosing from may likely be, younger and, other things than you might be at, in a little bit older age. But you have to be careful with lamenting and oh, woe is me, or oh, when I used to drive an X5. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to living in an apartment. Well, okay, well, you lost that opportunity. I used to have a 2-car garage. Whatever it might be, you can't drag that baggage into the relationship. And that's part of understanding your new reality. Most likely, this will be your new reality. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't be happy, but know that that downgrade financially could possibly be an upgrade as far as your happiness is concerned. But it won't be if you drag those expectations and then you try to make the guy who already is a downgrade financially into a financial equal or superior to what you had. That can be very, very dangerous, and it probably will destroy the relationship.
Yes. So that's all the show we have for this week. Tune in again next week, which I'm not sure what the topic's going to be, but it's going to be relevant. And thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this later and you have questions or comments or just want to participate, go ahead and leave it in the chat. We are still open to do interviews, online consultations, talking, whatever. If you want to come on the show and just talk about a topic that interests you, email us at emailamansworld@gmail.com. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.